In the early hours of March 24th, the Los Angeles police received a call from a resident who lived less than 100 meters from the famous dog trainer Cesar Millan's house. The caller reported a strong, foul odor that frequently appeared at night, along with strange sounds coming from inside the house. According to the description, the noise sounded like a prolonged dog howl mixed with frantic scratching sounds, as though something was trying to break free from below. At first, these signs could be dismissed as part of animal training activities. However, with the frequency, intensity, and strange nature of the reported noises, along with the unsettling feeling expressed by the residents, the authorities could not ignore the situation. A patrol team was dispatched to check the area. Upon arrival, they discovered that Cesar Millan was not home. However, as they stepped inside, the overpowering stench was so suffocating that they were forced to break the lock to inspect further. Following the trail, the police discovered an unusual spot on the kitchen floor. When they removed the wooden panels, a hidden steel door was revealed. Beneath that door was a secret basement that had never been reported before, the source of the foul smell. Beneath the quiet house was an unexpected basement, a place that contained not only metal cages, broken bones, and surveillance cameras, but possibly a dark secret about the man the world once trusted. So what is truly going on under the basement of Cesar Millan's house? Is it a special training area? Or something that crosses the line of morality? Could it be that the lights of the television stage are merely a cover for a horrifying truth beneath the ground? Join us as we uncover the truth in today's video. 1. Discovery of the secret basement. Cesar Millan was not at his mansion in the suburbs of Los Angeles when the search took place. According to his personal assistant, Millan was attending a 3-day seminar in Florida titled Building a Deep Relationship Between Humans and Dogs. What was notable was that his absence coincided with the moment when law enforcement, under the direction of a multi-agency task force cooperating with the FBI, executed an emergency search warrant at the house. The intrusion met little resistance. The home security system was quite basic, with no direct surveillance cameras. A surprising detail, especially for a well-known figure like Millan. Officers quickly divided into teams and began searching various areas of the mansion, which was designed in an upscale southwestern Mexico style. On the outside, it presented the image of a peaceful dog trainer who loved nature, with a spacious garden, meticulously cared-for plants, and a modern dog kennel in the back. However, upon stepping inside, the atmosphere began to feel strange. Attention quickly shifted to the kitchen area. An officer named Ramirez, while checking the floor, noticed a strange sound whenever he stepped on a particular floorboard near the refrigerator. This piece of wood appeared newer than the rest, not worn, with a darker color and signs of being temporarily installed. Upon removing the board, they discovered a large square metal door securely fastened into a cement frame. The handle of the door was rusted, and the edges of the door had traces of dust and dog fur. What was strange was that the door was not locked by a padlock, but instead had a bolt fastened from the outside, as if to prevent something from climbing up rather than keeping someone from going down. When the door was opened, a cold, damp, and foul-smelling air rushed out. The odor resembled decaying animal matter, mingling with the mustiness of a place that hadn't been visited for a long time. A narrow metal staircase led down, with the flashlight beam only illuminating part of the way before it was swallowed by the darkness. An officer wearing a smell mask drew his weapon and signaled for the team to continue moving downward. The scene in the basement thickened the atmosphere. There was no natural light, no windows, nor any ventilation. The walls were made of rough concrete, showing visible scratches, claw marks, and dark brown stains, which later the forensic team confirmed were traces of dried blood. The smell of decay was even stronger here than upstairs. On the floor, mixed with the dust, were dog hairs, pieces of nails, and several small teeth scattered around, all signs of prolonged confinement. The basement was larger than expected, around 40 square meters, divided into 3 areas that were not fully separated but clearly organized for specific purposes. Near the stairs, there were 4 metal cages, each large enough for a dog to curl up inside. No water bowls or food trays were visible. Only cold floors and dry fecal stains were left on the sides of the cages. One cage was still open with rusted hinges, but signs that it had been used recently. An officer pointed to the wall behind the cages, where deep scratch marks had been left so severe that they had even loosened the concrete. Clearly, this was not the sign of an animal raised under normal conditions. On the opposite side was a storage area, a metal shelf with small hooks to hang leashes, muzzles, and collars, all covered with dog hair and a distinct odor. An old machine labeled Shock. Reflex control was wrapped in plastic, as if the owner wanted to leave no traces, but also had no intention of destroying it. The most serious discovery was in the far corner of the basement, behind a pull-up metal door. This was a small room, about 10 square meters, but clearly designed for a specific purpose. 3 large surveillance screens hung on the wall connected to a mini-server placed directly under a table. Everything was dusty, but the cables were intact. When the technical team examined it, they found that the hard drive had been removed and the data had been wiped, though some temporary memory could still be recovered. On the desk was a thick notebook about 100 pages meticulously recording daily activities divided into columns. Date, ID, training time, response, conclusion. A random page selected read 14-2, sample 007, electric shock level 2, response, drooling mild seizures, conclusion, continue observation for 24 hours. The records did not have specific names, only ID numbers, which made the notebook feel more like a psychological experiment log than a mere training tracker. Around the room were stacks of papers and documents. Many were stamped by veterinary clinics, but most had no address, only the clinic's name and basic information about the animals. Some noted abnormal neurological response and needs to monitor communication reflex. There were also dog import-export papers from Mexico to a private post office in California, but the recipient's name had been blacked out with a marker. A technical officer seized everything and sent it to the examination room for verification. On the desk was another controversial item, an electronic collar with a remote-controlled signal mechanism, a type often used for anti-barking training. However, the design of this collar was not like the commercial version. It was a custom-made, hand-modified version with an external control circuit, indicating that the device might have been enhanced for higher power or modified to change the stimulation frequency. The basement, an unexpected place, had now become the focal point of the investigation. It not only raised questions about its intended use, but also sparked a series of hypotheses. Could this have been a secret training facility or a psychological lab for animals? The smell of death, the claw marks, and the overwhelming silence of that basement left many unanswered questions. And as the investigation deepened, the discoveries made by the police forced the public to ask, who is Cesar Millan when the camera lens is not following his every move? 2. Investigation of the surveillance equipment. After the investigative team completed their initial inspection of the entire basement, their attention quickly shifted to the surveillance room, which served as the central hub for overseeing all activities in the basement. The design of this room was far from spontaneous or makeshift. From the neatly organized network cables to the well-arranged desks and the strategically placed cameras throughout the basement, everything indicated a meticulously planned, organized setup, clearly part of a long-term strategy. On the 3 monitors mounted on the wall, the HDMI connections and power supplies remained intact, but the footage was cut off. The video storage device, an external hard drive attached to a mini server, failed to boot up initially. However, after being dismantled and thoroughly inspected by the FBI's digital forensics experts, they discovered the hard drive had been wiped using specialized software. This was not a standard deletion. It was a deep format operation, a method typically employed by organizations with high security requirements. This discovery immediately raised suspicions about the seriousness of the case. Within just 24 hours, the technical team focused on recovering the deleted data. Using advanced recovery tools, they managed to reconstruct video clips that had not been completely overwritten. While most of the data had been erased, what was recovered was enough to leave the entire investigation team stunned for several minutes. The first restored video, about 4 minutes and 23 seconds long, was recorded from a wide-angle camera positioned high in the basement, exactly where the scene camera had been. In the video, dim light from fluorescent lamps illuminated 3 metal cages, 2 of which contained dogs. Based on their shape and size, the dogs appeared to be shepherd mixes or huskies huddled in the corners of their cages. As the basement door opened and a man entered, later confirmed to be Cesar Millan, both dogs displayed visible reactions, ears drooping, tails tucked between their legs, their bodies trembling. One of them let out a small yelp and tried to press itself against the cage wall, bumping its head against the bars. Throughout the video, Cesar did not shout at or hit the dogs. He approached them calmly, placed 2 bowls of food in front of each cage and stood still, observing for about 30 seconds. Notably, towards the end of the video, he took out a device resembling a remote control, pressed a button, and immediately one of the dogs jumped up, howling before collapsing onto the ground. The dog's reaction was fast and clear, matching descriptions of electronic pulse devices that the police had seized at the scene. Subsequent restored videos were not in chronological order. Some brief clips showed Cesar entering the basement at night, usually alone and occasionally carrying a notebook. On one occasion, he brought a small cage with a camera attached, possibly to observe the dog's reaction when isolated in darkness. Another video, less than 20 seconds long, showed a pit bull biting the metal bars until it bled, then lying motionless. As there was no audio, the experts had to combine the images with notes from the notebook found at the scene. These videos perfectly matched the detailed notes. Sample 012. Extreme reaction to isolation. Increased sound exposure. Reaction prolonged howling. No contact. From these findings, the FBI began to form an initial hypothesis. This basement was not just a place for imprisoning dogs, but potentially a covert animal behavioral psychology research facility operating under the guise of special training. The recording of each dog's reaction combined with electronic devices, isolated spaces, and camera surveillance were familiar elements in organized animal psychology studies. But here there was no legitimate scientific institution present. Within the investigative team, one expert made a chilling observation. Cesar is not conducting training experiments. He's observing to modify behavior. This is not love for animals. It's absolute control. Although no official conclusions had been made, the videos revealed a completely different side to what the public knew about him. The man, always smiling in front of the camera, cuddling puppies, could actually walk silently amidst the howls and panic-stricken eyes of the very animals he was supposed to love. Soon after, a member of the technical team discovered an internal app in the server, programmed in basic encryption language named Dog Control Alpha. This app recorded the activation times of electrical devices, including the hour intensity duration and individual ID numbers of those affected. All the data matched the previous handwritten notes. This further strengthened the suspicion that the entire basement operated based on a methodical simulation process, rather than random actions. At the same time, the FBI began investigating veterinary clinics and dog transport facilities from Mexico to Los Angeles, particularly those linked to names on blurred receipts. A small veterinary clinic in Tijuana responded, stating that they had sent many dogs for special training to a person named CM from California. While there was no direct evidence linking Cesar Millan, the vague data was slowly being pieced together, forming a chilling picture. Meanwhile, a former assistant trainer who had worked at Cesar's facility from 2022 to 2023 who requested anonymity contacted the investigation team. The assistant claimed to have frequently heard strange noises coming from the basement behind the kitchen, but was instructed to never go near that area. The assistant said, "Cesar is very meticulous. He controls everything, even how the staff walks and looks at the animals. If you're too lenient, you'll be fired. Here, the dog must obey absolutely." With each restored video, every decoded line of code, and the appearance of former witnesses, the story began to take shape. But it also became more ominous. The media started reporting. But because there were no official charges, the case remained confidential within investigative circles. However, just one leaked piece of data, even a single video, and Cesar Millan's dog whisperer image would collapse in an instant. 3. The hidden tunnel. While the technical team continued working to recover data from the server, another group from the field unit was assigned to conduct a more thorough inspection of the area at the far end of the basement, a space that had previously seemed fully searched. Using flashlights to illuminate the dark corners under the floor, one officer noticed a section of the wall behind the surveillance room that had a different structure from the rest of the room. It was a flat wall without cracks, but showing signs of being newly constructed. When they lightly tapped on the wall, the hollow echo from within immediately startled the entire team. After nearly 45 minutes of using demolition tools, the investigation team managed to open a thin metal door, camouflaged with a fake cement coating on the outside. Behind the door was a narrow hallway about 40 meters long, wide enough only for a person to walk hunched over. The air inside was heavy with the smell of damp earth and dust. The tunnel lacked lighting, but the walls were covered with a simple soundproofing layer, likely to prevent noise from escaping. Throughout the investigation, the team noticed that the passage was reinforced with thin but very sturdy steel bars, creating a much more solid structure than its outward appearance. The consistent spacing between these bars suggested that this was not a haphazard excavation, but a deliberately designed and constructed project, one that could have been carried out over several months without being detected. As its exit was completely hidden from view, the end of the tunnel was located directly beneath the grassy area at the back of the house, where to an outsider it appeared to be just an empty stretch of grass, lush green grass, surrounded by a tall wooden fence. However, when the investigation team stood in this area and examined it closely, they noticed that the soil of the grass patch, where the tunnel led up, had a different structure from the surrounding areas. Upon digging through the topsoil, they uncovered a metal hatch covered with artificial turf, secured by a hinge hidden beneath the grass. This hatch could be easily pulled up from the inside, and it closed completely when pressed down. From a distance, no one would have recognized it as a hatch. It was indeed an excellent means of transportation, fast, safe, and discreet, usable at any time of the day. What particularly caught the team's attention was the complete isolation of this backyard area from the surrounding residential neighborhoods. According to a satellite map extracted from the city's data, the land of Cesar Millan's house was adjacent to a small forest area, a buffer zone that had not yet been developed for construction. Thanks to a side gate leading into the forest from behind the fence, anyone could move people, animals, or goods in and out without being noticed by neighbors, and without being recorded by public traffic cameras. While inspecting the backyard area, the team discovered another suspicious clue. About 300 meters from the hatch in the forest, the officers found a small trail cutting through the brush, and the ground here seemed to have been frequently trampled. Tire tracks, possibly from a cart or dog transport vehicle, were visible on the dry earth. These tracks led to a small path that connected to a mountain trail where light trucks or personal vehicles could park without attracting attention. Although there were no surveillance cameras in this area, the clear tracks indicated frequent movement from the tunnel to the outside without detection over a long period. What was even more suspicious was when the forensic team checked the trail in the forest, they discovered a dried blood stain on a tree root, along with a black trash bag, carefully hidden behind a large rock. Inside the bag, they found a bone fragment, a small piece of a skull, likely from a puppy gloves tape, and several animal hair samples. All items were collected and sent to the laboratory. One of the specialists whispered to the lead investigator, "If this bone isn't from an animal but from a human, then we're stepping into an entirely different level." During a subsequent internal meeting, the investigation team proposed 3 main theories to analyze the crime scene and its connection to the discoveries in the basement. Theory 1. Extreme training. According to animal behavior experts, there is evidence suggesting that some training programs could escalate to extreme levels if not properly controlled. In this case, the basement was thought to be a site for testing an extreme secretive training method, a place where Cesar Millan or his team conducted behavior resets using coercive psychological methods. Dogs deemed uncontrollable, too aggressive, or unresponsive to traditional training methods may have been taken down to the basement for a program called Behavioral Reflex Reset. According to Miguel Sandoval, the first whistleblower, some training sessions lasted for hours in absolute silence, with dim lighting, low temperatures, and low-frequency sound stimuli that could disorient the dogs and leave them confused. This sensory isolation, combined with electrical stimulation devices and neural control wires, could help reset behavior by completely erasing old responses. The fact that the basement was entirely underground with soundproofed walls and accessible through a secondary tunnel leading to the technical area further reinforced the theory this was not just a storage space, but a cognitive reconditioning room in disguise. This tunnel could have been used to quietly move dogs from the main area to avoid detection by other staff, preventing any disruption or damage to the humane image Cesar had previously built. This model is often seen in behavior control organizations, secretive, isolated, and completely discreet. Hypothesis 2. Concealed incident. Another hypothesis that the Special Investigation Team is focusing on is the possibility of a serious incident occurring in the basement, which could be related to the death of one or more dogs. Information from former employees, especially the case of the bulldog, Buster, who passed away shortly after a training session without surveillance cameras, makes this hypothesis even more plausible. Leaked documents from the center, including unclear medical reports, internal emails referring to an accidental incident, along with the deletion of camera data during a suspicious time frame, have raised doubts about organized evidence tampering. The fact that the basement is not included in the official registry diagram and the secret tunnel system makes it entirely feasible to move anyone out of the center undetected. Notably, a technician recounted that one night in September 2023, he was called to inspect the ventilation system in Area B and discovered that the stairway door leading to the basement had been locked from the inside. When he returned the following morning, he found that the floor had been cleaned, the air filtration system had been replaced, and the room's temperature recording devices had been reset. These actions cannot simply be a coincidence, especially considering another important factor. The dog behavior data from that night, typically updated daily, was completely empty. When connecting all these events together, the investigation team is leaning toward the possibility of a serious incident having occurred, possibly an attack between the animals, a training error, or even as an insider source confirmed a death caused by electrical shock during training. If that is the case, Cesar Millan's choice to delete data, clean the scene, and use the tunnel to dispose of evidence could be a strategy to avoid a scandal and protect his image. Hypothesis 3. Secret transport operations. Although this is quite a bold hypothesis, it is not without foundation. The tunnels and secret basement could be part of a dog trafficking network, particularly from Mexico to the US. Evidence includes animal transport receipts found in a secondary data warehouse recording over 30 dog import trips from the southern border in 18 months, with recipient names redacted and dog identification codes recorded with symbols rather than legitimate microchip numbers. The importation of undocumented dogs for experimental training programs or to be sold in the black market, particularly rare breeds or working dogs, forms a multi-million-dollar underground market in the US. Investigators suspect that Cesar's center, with its scale, financial resources, and strategic location, could have unintentionally or deliberately become a link in this chain. Constructing a secret tunnel system connected to the unregistered basement is the perfect condition for receiving isolating training and transporting dogs without the scrutiny of regulatory authorities. According to customs reports, at least 5 dog shipments from Tijuana have gone missing in California in the past 2 years. Tracking data from microchips stopped working as soon as the dogs were brought into the Santa Clarita area home to the Dog Psychology Center. Although there is no clear evidence yet, the coincidence in location and timing is enough for the police to expand their investigation into the possibility of illegal animal trafficking across the border. A big question arises. Why would there be a need for a secret exit? And what is it that Cesar Millan wants to hide so badly that he had to build an entire tunnel. In public records, Cesar once said, "I believe that silence helps me connect better with the dogs." However, could the silence he refers to be a hidden basement with muffled whimpers sealed behind soundproof walls? Later that day, a specialized team expanded the search area along the trail. At a small turn in the forest, more than 500 meters from the house, they found an abandoned wooden shack, inside of which were only a stainless steel table, old chains, and an empty burlap sack. There were no surveillance cameras, no electricity. However, its structure was very suitable to serve as a transfer point, a place to temporarily hold dogs or prepare them before transportation. This discovery opens a new direction for the investigation. Is Cesar running an underground training network, or is he simply a dog lover caught up in the pressures of success, fame, and the need for control? In an internal report sent at the end of the day, the team leader commented, "The entire system from the basement to the tunnel leading to the backyard could not have been a project of one person working alone. It requires technical expertise, time, and most importantly, a clear purpose." This indicates that either Cesar Millan has been planning this for many years, or he is covering up for someone else doing this behind his back. As of now, all the hypotheses are still open, but one thing is certain: the basement is not just a place to house dogs. It is also the place where the truth has been hidden for a long time. 4. Reactions from those involved. The information about the search of Cesar Millan's house was initially kept confidential within the law enforcement agencies. However, just 48 hours later, the news began to spread widely. A celebrity blogger posted an ambiguous tweet. A well-known figure in the dog training world just had their house searched in Los Angeles, and the police found a basement. Although the name was not mentioned, Millan's prominent position in the dog training industry led the online community to immediately begin speculating. Soon after, an anonymous neighbor, living directly across from Cesar's house, contacted a reporter from Los Angeles Weekly and shared what he knew. "I've been hearing dogs howling at night for the past few months. At first, I thought he was just training them as usual. Dogs can be difficult, so the howling is normal. But recently, the sound has been different. It's not just barking anymore. Some nights I hear scratching, a long howling like something is panicking. I thought about going over to ask, but then I hesitated. He's famous. Who would dare question him?" This neighbor, along with many others in the area, felt uneasy, but was intimidated by Cesar Millan's immense fame. They were too accustomed to seeing him on television chatting with Oprah Winfrey training Hollywood stars. How could someone like him do anything wrong? However, when the information started to be confirmed by reputable news sources, the Los Angeles Police Department had to hold a small press conference to clarify the situation. During the briefing, an FBI spokesperson stated, "We confirm that a legal search warrant was executed at Mr. Cesar Millan's house related to an anonymous report concerning suspected abnormal behavior with animals. We are currently working with the ASPCA, American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, to analyze the collected evidence. No criminal charges have been filed at this time." When asked about video footage, the spokesperson took a cautious stance. "We cannot disclose details at this time, as the investigation is still in its early stages. However, some images may suggest improper training methods or even violations of animal protection laws." Immediately afterward, media attention shifted to Cesar's family and close associates. At the center of the spotlight was Andre Millan, his eldest son, who had also appeared in a few episodes of Dog Whisperer with his father. When a reporter caught him leaving the family's training center office, Andre appeared tense and avoided answering questions. However, in a brief interview with local news channel KTLA, he reluctantly shared, "My dad loves dogs more than anyone I've ever known. I don't know anything about that basement. Honestly, I've never even been down to that part of the house much. My dad has a habit of redesigning certain areas of the house to work quietly, and he often works at night. But I don't think there's anything wrong with it." Andre avoided questions about the camera, the bone fragments, or the tunnel in the backyard. He stated that he would wait until the lawyer officially speaks out. Andre's silence was seen as a strategic defensive move, while Cesar Millan's lawyers had not made any official statements aside from the familiar phrase, "We will fully cooperate with the authorities." As for those who had worked with Cesar, reactions varied from shock and defense to caution. Jada Pinkett Smith, one of his famous friends and someone who had helped him when he first arrived in the US, shared on Instagram's story, "I won't believe anything until the truth is proven. I've known Cesar for over 15 years, and he's a person who lives for animals. But if something is wrong, I believe justice will speak." A former employee, who requested anonymity, and who worked at Cesar's training center in 2021 reached out to the investigative team at LA Times. This individual shared, "There are areas within the training facility that staff are not allowed to enter, especially the area behind the kitchen, which is designed completely differently." He said it was a private area for monitoring the behavior of disturbed dogs. There were also dogs that went missing from the records without any clear reason. This account raised further suspicions that the basement was not just a training area, but could possibly be a place for more extreme behavioral control, possibly even involving psychological research or other illegal activities such as the trafficking of special dogs or illegal dogfighting training. With the discovery of the hidden tunnel unregistered basement and disturbing evidence such as bone fragments and soundproof rooms, the story became even darker. Investigators are now trying to determine whether these elements are part of a larger pattern of unethical or illegal behavior, or if they are just isolated incidents that have been exaggerated. Currently, the world is closely following the investigation with one question still hanging in the air. Is Cesar Millan truly the dog lover he claims to be, or is there a darker side to his legacy that has been concealed? 5. Related hypotheses. As the investigation entered its second week, more than 20 newspaper articles and 15 television programs had covered the case involving Cesar Millan. In the mainstream media, statements were still being made cautiously. No official charges have been filed. The investigation is ongoing. Everyone is presumed innocent until proven guilty. However, within the authorities, and even within the behavioral research community, many important questions had begun to arise. Does Cesar Millan have a dark side that the public has never known about? And if so, when did it start? The first question was raised right at the scene. Why would such a basement be necessary? A true dog lover who claims to be the dog whisperer. Why would he need to build an underground holding facility equipped with surveillance cameras and conceal the escape route with a door camouflaged beneath a carpet of grass? If it was merely a training facility, why not use his main training camp? A place with modern facilities, spacious, legal, and public. The effort to conceal everything from the design data transportation documents to the logs all pointed to a clear attempt to hide something. One of the hypotheses currently under deeper investigation is the possibility that Cesar Millan had established an extreme behavior correction center for dogs deemed impossible to rehabilitate animals. Assessed as too aggressive, out of control, and unsafe for human contact, may have been brought there to undergo extreme behavioral modification techniques. The investigation records pointed to technical signs, isolation of space's use of low-frequency electric pulses, manipulation of light and sound, and recording of biological responses. This was not just typical training. It was more like animal behavior research at a primitive reflex level. The next question, and perhaps the scariest one, was, did all the dogs brought into the basement survive to walk out? Bone samples collected at the scene are currently undergoing DNA testing to determine species time of death and decomposition conditions. One shocking hypothesis within the FBI is that the bodies of the dogs that did not meet the standard may have been destroyed or disposed of through the hidden exit. Although there is no concrete evidence of animal trafficking or disposal, the appearance of some unidentified bone samples, whether animal or human, has caused significant anxiety among the forensic team. If even one bone is confirmed to be human, even a fingernail or a rib fragment, the entire case will shift from a civil investigation to a serious criminal case involving murder. Another hypothesis related to psychological and sociological factors is currently being analyzed by experts. Could Cesar Millan's fame and success have led him to lose the moral boundaries he once claimed to uphold? Throughout dozens of interviews over his career, he always emphasized, "I do not train dogs, I train people." But if that's the case, who trained the fearful dogs in the basement? If he only teaches people how to love, why is it that his very presence causes the dogs to huddle in the corner of their pens whenever he appears? A behavioral expert from the FBI, who has worked on criminal cases involving high-control individuals, offered an intriguing perspective. Cesar might be a victim of the very method he preaches. When you base your entire identity on control, controlling dogs, controlling the stage, controlling your reputation, you become vulnerable to wanting to control even the uncontrollable fear, instinct resistance. And if he fails to make a dog submit, it's not just a professional failure. It's a failure of the very persona that has sustained him all these years. The tunnel is not just a passage, it is a symbol, a secret escape route entirely separated from the world above, where people cheer and idolize. But below ground, he could do anything without the scrutiny of public judgment. No cameras, no questions. And this is what makes the case more complex than any ordinary scandal. It's not just about animal abuse, it's also about the question of moral boundaries in those who call themselves saviors. The closer you are to the light, the longer your shadow stretches. And perhaps Cesar Millan's shadow has stretched all the way down to the basement he created. Currently, the FBI is collecting testimony from former employees who worked at Cesar's training camp and is expanding the investigation into financial transactions between him and international animal transport organizations, especially dog breeding camps along the Mexico border. A newly decrypted document revealed a link between Cesar's camp and a private address in Baja California, which had previously been suspected as a dogfighting hub. No official charges have been filed, no arrest warrants have been issued. But the pressure from the public, from animal rights organizations, and from the global dog-loving community is growing by the hour. No matter what the final investigation results are, the name Cesar Millan has already lost the shining image he was once revered for. He might be innocent, it might be a misunderstanding, but it could also be that under that basement lies a truth he has buried for so long that he forgot it was still alive, and is screaming every night. What has been found beneath Cesar Millan's house has raised more questions than answers. The secret basement, the iron cages, the smell of decay, the surveillance equipment, and the deleted data. All these are painting a much darker picture than the dog whisperer persona the world once knew. Could this just be a harsh training center? Or has it been the site of behaviors carefully concealed for years? Did Cesar Millan truly know nothing about the basement beneath his house? Or is he hiding something that no one dares to speak of? The investigation is still ongoing. And perhaps the darkest truth has yet to be revealed. What do you think about this case? Leave a comment below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss any updates on this mysterious case. See you in the next video.